again. This is Doc Rotten from Horror News Radio and Gruesome Magazine. Joining me once again is the one and only Paul Cardullo. He is here for another installment of Groovy, Gory, Gruesome, Gold, where we look back at some retro films. Tonight we are looking at The Slayer from 1982. Paul, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing, Doc?
I'm doing good. Slayer. Now, this one may not be on a whole lot of people's radar. Tell us about The Slayer.
Well, this one's kind of interesting. It's by director J.S. Cardone, who wrote the screenplay along with Bill Ewing. And it's this kind of weird hybrid. It's a little bit of a slasher, but it could also be a psychological horror film. Basically, you have Kay, played by Sarah Kendall, and she's an artist, but they don't really go into that much detail. And she has these sort of nightmares that may have a monster in them. You only get like a real glimpse of it really quickly. But anyway, she's been prepping for some big art show. So to relax beforehand, she and her husband, David, played by Alan McRae, and her brother, Eric, played by Frederick Flynn, and his either girlfriend or wife, Brooke, played by Carol Cottonbrook. Basically, they go out to this island. It's a fairly remote island. It has a small cabin on it. Nobody else really goes there. And then, people start to die. And it's a question. Yeah. And it's a question of, there's only 4 of them. So they actually throw in an extra death by having a local who happened to be on the island fishing, and he gets killed first. But it's a question of, is it really this monster she's dreaming about? Or is Kay killing them in her sleep? Or is it, some other slasher killer? And it's meant to be kind of, ambiguous. But it's got this really kind of weird feel to it because it's trying to go for several different aspects like that.
Well, it sounds like it would have a hard time holding your interest if there's only 4 potential victims. I mean, is that a problem?
Actually, it's not. It handles it pretty well because it has a really nice sense of place to it. It was filmed on Tybee Island, Georgia, but it's treated as if it's a sort of like semi-abandoned island, and it has so there's a really nice atmosphere to it. So it takes a while till somebody gets killed, and then they kind of parcel them out because there's only a few you can do because you only have a really small cast. This isn't Friday the 13th, right? But the atmosphere in it works really well. And so, and the house, you have a really good sense of place. There's an old abandoned theater that's used at one point. That's really kind of neat. So there's enough there to actually pull you along. And when the kills do happen, they're actually really well done. Well, aside from the first one, which is the guy who was fishing, which I think was just we need one more kill. Let's do a quick insert of, him being beaten with a oar. But other than that, the other kills are pretty creative and interesting.
Is it graphic for horror fans of the 80s, that want their slasher goodness, gore and blood and all that goodness?
Yeah, there's some neat ones. They're relatively quick, but they're definitely creative. The one that really stands out is when a person gets impaled with a pitchfork, and it's a quick cut, but it looks all for the world like you really do see it being pushed in and coming out their chest and then being pulled back out. And then there's a kind of an interesting kill involving, fish hooks, not quite to Hellraiser levels and sort of gore, but, definitely some creativity there. So it's not super gory, but there's enough there and enough interest, I think. It's one of those ones that if you're interested in 80s horror, it's a neat little unusual one to catch.
All right, well, let's wrap this up with your score, 1 through 5, and your favorite scene.
So I'd give it a good solid 3. A little bit lower than you would expect, partially because they're kind of going for this ambiguity, but instead it just seems a little confusing instead of like a real, nicely done ambiguity. But still it's a 3. And if you're a fan of 80s horror, it's one of those ones you probably should check out because it's definitely different. Favorite scene would probably have to be, the fishhook kill where he gets wrapped by fishing line, and he gets dragged off into the surf, and you can't see who's doing the dragging, but it's really kind of a neat effect and neat kill there. But yeah, I'd say definitely check it out.
All right, so there you go. One of the more obscure slasher films from the 80s, I would say. Thank you, sir. Let's say goodnight.
Good night, Doc.
Be sure to visit GruesomeMagazine.com to listen to the other Gruesome podcasts, Hard News Radio, and Decades of Horror. Also check out the Gruesome Magazine Quarterly, available in digital and print-on-demand format.